Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to be reading the story called The Burning Bush. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace as if he were Egyptian, even though he knew he wasn't. He knew he was really a child of Israel, an Israelite. One day Moses saw an Egyptian man hitting an Israelite worker. This made Moses really mad because he was an Israelite too. He got so mad, he killed the Egyptian. Yep, he got a little too mad. Have you ever made a mistake because you were just so mad? Yeah, that's what happened to Moses. Moses knew he was in big trouble, so he ran off into the desert to hide for 40 years. That's a long time to hide, but he was sure if he came back to Egypt, Pharaoh would find him and kill him, so he stayed in the desert. Moses hid in the desert for so long, he eventually met a nice girl named Zipporah, got married, had kids, and became a shepherd. His new life was so much better than getting killed by Pharaoh. So Moses figured he'd just stay in the desert and never go back to Egypt. Ever, no matter what. Until one day. One day, when Moses was minding his own business and his sheep in the desert, he saw something weird. A bush was burning, but it didn't burn up. It just kept burning and burning. That's weird, he thought. And then the bush said something. Well, it wasn't really the bush talking. It was God talking through the bush that was burning. Since that was not a normal thing for Moses, or anyone for the matter, he decided he'd better listen. Hey, Moses, said God, the children of Israel are having a terrible time in Egypt. I've heard them crying, and it is time to save them and bring them to the land I promised. That's great, answered Moses. Then God said, I want you to do it. You're going to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let the Israelites leave. And Moses said, that's a terrible idea. Moses explained that he wasn't very popular in Egypt. After all, he had killed a guy. And God said, I'll come with you. Moses went on to say that he really didn't like public speaking, and that maybe someone else better would be better for the job. And God said, I'll come with you. Moses asked why Pharaoh would even listen to him if he just showed up and said, let my people go. And once again, God said, I will come with you. Then, as if the burning bush weren't impressive enough, God turned Moses' walking stick into a scary snake, and then back into a stick, because, he's God and he can do things like that. So after he stopped running from the scary snake, Moses asked, would you do cool stuff like that in front of Pharaoh? God replied, and stuff even more amazing than that. Moses thought and finally said, okay, I'll go back to Egypt, and you'll come with me, right? And then God probably said, well, what part of I'll come with you don't you understand? So very nervously, Moses and his family started walking back to Egypt, and God went with him. Our everyday truth today from this story with Moses is I can do hard things because God is always with me, and I want you to remember that, boys and girls. God is always with you, and you can do hard things because he's with you. Now, why did Moses think he was a terrible choice to rescue God's people from Egypt? That's right, because he had done bad things in Egypt, and he knew that he would get in trouble if they knew about that, and he went back. And he wasn't very good at speaking in front of people, so he also felt like he shouldn't be the one going back. Now, when have you needed to trust God because you were afraid? Have you, boys and girls, had a time in your life that you had to trust God because you were afraid? I want you to think about that and know that no matter how afraid you are, you can always trust God. Now we're going to say a little prayer. Dear God, help us remember that when you ask us to do something big, you always help us. Amen. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.